The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Monday, the 12th of January, 2026, and we have an important show for you today. In a moment, Andy Wakefield will be coming on to talk about the new US and UK vaccine schedule. Then we have Cece Doucette is back again, as promised, to answer your questions on EMR and wireless. And then we have a live story with an unvaccinated student, Colt, from West Virginia. He was kicked out of school. So he's coming on with his mom, Kim, to talk about exactly what's going on. All right, so first we go straight to Andy Wakefield. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, Paula. It's great to see you. I love the new look.
Of CHD TV, not me.
Absolutely, yes.
I love a new look.
Love
Anyway.
your look anyway, Paula. Yeah.
All right. Okay, everybody. So here's the situation. As the USA start to withdraw vaccines, as in they don't recommend vaccines from 11 to 17 and the Hep B at birth. We'll talk about that in a minute. The UK is actually ramping it up a bit. So they have just introduced the MMRV, which is the varicella, which is the chicken pox, added on top of the MMR, which we know already is frightful and kills and damages so many children. Andy, talk to us about it all.
Well, as general principle, Paul, let's go back to the beginning and try and establish some baseline. I've been doing this now for 30 years, and many, many years ago, I did a review of all of the pre-licensing safety studies for my own edification that compared, single measles vaccines, the measles rubella vaccine, and then the MMR vaccine. And I was looking for comparison studies of the MMR versus the single vaccine safety studies, and I couldn't find them. Now, why is this important? Let's just, as a principle, if I, as a doctor, gave you 3 blood pressure drugs, 3 antihypertensive drugs, at the same time, I'd probably kill you. I'd kill all my patients that I did it to. So interaction, combination drugs are particularly hazardous and need to be studied. And when I spoke to David Salisbury, who was in charge of vaccination at the Department of Health at the time, I said, where are these studies? Where are the comparison studies? And his answer was, we had no reason to assume that giving the combination MMR vaccine would be any different in terms of safety profile compared to giving the single vaccine. Well, I'm sorry, Dr. Salisbury, but you do not make assumptions about live viruses. When it's your intention to give this vaccine, the MMR, to every child in the country, you make damn sure that you've done the safety studies first. And that they were not done, and they've never been done. And so that's the situation in which we find ourselves. 1 + 1 + 1 did not equal 3. It equaled something completely different. And this was borne out by the fact that they found that there was an alteration in the immune response in the triple vaccine, particularly to the mumps component. So there was an effect, but the consequences for safety were completely ignored. Well, then we come to the situation where they add in, for convenience, the chickenpox vaccine into the live viral vaccine. This is a way in which the immune system has never, in the entire history of this planet, seen these viruses injected into the skin or viruses in combination. And when they did that in the United States, they found that it doubled the rate of seizures in children, particularly in younger children. And it's now, interestingly, in the latest recommendations, the combination MMRV has been deferred until second dose, that is the 4 years of age, as a precaution. And I commend Bobby Kennedy's team for actually doing that and making the changes to the program, the much needed program changes that they have made. But in the UK, they're now recommending the MMRV as a replacement for MMR. Now, fortunately, in the UK, as you know, Pauls, vaccination is not mandatory, but nonetheless, doctors are rewarded, compensated, given bonuses for meeting vaccine schedules. There's a huge pressure on parents to vaccinate. So I have a real problem with these combination vaccines, and it cannot be that they're deemed safe in the absence of adequate safety studies. And I'll just read you this, because years ago, as you know, Paul, all I recommended at that press conference about the first autism study was that further research should be done. And the further research has now been done. And here's a paper by Nick Hulsher and Peter McCullough's group, and they've compared, this is the latest findings, 136 papers that purport to look at this issue. And here's the conclusion of the paper. Combination and early time routine childhood vaccination constitutes the most significant modifiable risk factor for autism. In other words, it's preventable. A modifiable risk factor, combination vaccine. So you can understand that based upon the cumulative data on this, there are reasons to be concerned about the use of combined vaccines. And I have real anxieties. Again, I commend Bobby's team for making much needed adjustments to the schedule, but in the end, it must be voluntary. It must be based on fully informed parental consent to vaccination, knowing all of the risks and all of the benefits that are available to us. So that does not happen at the moment, and it cannot be through coercion, bribery, bullying, or diktat by public health authorities. It has to come down to parents, and I believe you have a segment later in your show dealing with precisely this issue.
Andy, so last year I was in England in February 2025, and chickenpox was everywhere in Shaftesbury, and nobody cared. The schools were just calling up saying you might want to pick your child up, chickenpox going around. No, it was the weirdest thing. Keeping elderly people away that were on chemo, fine, get that. But on the whole, chickenpox was just running around Shaftesbury. Now that we have this vaccine, MMRV, it is now in England being portrayed as a deadly killer. Chickenpox is going to... When we were younger, it was nothing. I mean, it's itchy and uncomfortable, but it's nothing, right?
Yeah, chickenpox is here's the thing about chickenpox, polls, and this is what happens when you change the ecology of man's interaction with the virus, is that before the introduction of a chickenpox vaccine, there was epidemic chickenpox. It was occurring every few years. What that had the beneficial effect of doing was to expose older people who'd already had chickenpox to a booster dose of natural chickenpox and elevate their immune response. This is called wild type boosting. What that did is to protect the older people from resurgence of chickenpox, reenacting in the form of shingles. When they gave the vaccine in the United States, it eliminated that cyclical epidemic pattern. Children were no longer exposed. They didn't get chickenpox. There was no longer this exposure of older people to chickenpox. Their immune system wasn't boosted. And so their antibody levels fell, and they developed an epidemic of shingles. An epidemic of shingles, a disease created by the vaccine policy. What Merck did at the time, seeing a potential market, was to multiply by 10 times the dose of the chickenpox vaccine in a shingles vaccine and made themselves a lot of money. I mean, it's absolutely staggering. And it all came about because of chickenpox vaccination in children.
In your opinion, with all your knowledge and research, how dangerous is the MMR and how dangerous is the MMRV? How much danger are the British children in right now?
It's difficult to quantify, and that is because so many vaccines are given to children, particularly at the same time, that it's become almost impossible. In fact, it is impossible to conduct a scientific study that dissects out the risk of any particular vaccine. In the UK, when we originally got involved in this all those years ago, of course, MMR was given in isolation at 15 to 18 months. And so it was, parents were able to say, this is the trigger, this is what happened. He had the MMR vaccine, and then this happened afterwards. But now it's become very, very confusing, particularly in the United States, where the schedule is so intensive. But I have major concerns, and that is when we In the UK, it was when we went from the single vaccine to the triple vaccine that we started to see this upward inflection, the beginning of the epidemic of neurodevelopmental disorders. That's not to say the single vaccine wasn't problematic. We'll never know because the safety studies were totally inadequate. But I have particular concerns about the use of combination vaccines.
And just to add that when we were on tour with the first Vax bus, we did the most horrific story of a beautiful boy that just had one varicella vaccine and was completely paralyzed after it. So just adding that onto the MMR, I can't imagine the damage that's going to do. Let's go over to the US schedule. So recently we hear that the CDC is now not recommending certain vaccines from 11 till 17 and the Hep B at birth, but hasn't touched that childhood, the DTPs or the DTaPs and the MMRs. And still recommending, sadly, the MMRV at around 4, we think. What do you know?
Well, I think that, again, the major problem with this is that these recommendations are interpreted as mandates, so that schools and other institutions are demanding that children get these vaccines. So despite the fact that they're a recommendation, parents are being forced, coerced into giving these, or your child can't attend school, they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't live a normal life. If your child is vaccinated and therefore ostensibly protected according to the CDC, then why should there be a worry about this happening? I think this comes back to their knowledge, their clear knowledge that, for example, in the US during the Disneyland outbreak, then it turned out 4 years later that 43%, nearly half of the cases, were actually caused by the vaccine itself. That would be a terrible admission to have made at the time, despite the fact that they probably had that data at the time. It waited 4 years until it was released to the public in order to avoid concern, I'm sure. Anyway, the public health have clearly not been honest with people. You will never eliminate diseases where the vaccine you're giving actually causes the disease in many cases. So that's a futile objective. My concern now, Pauls, is that with the increasing failure of these old live viral vaccines that have been around for many decades, with the evolution of resistant strains of viruses resistant to the immunity induced by these old vaccines, that we're going to see a push for mRNA-based measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, etc. And if we're talking about it on your show, then they most certainly have already considered it and put it into action.
And Andy, what kind of pressure do you think Bobby's under? Because a lot of people criticizing him heavily, saying it is not enough. Babies are dying, children are dying, etc., etc. It's just not enough. What's your defense, if any, of him?
I can give you a perspective from 30 years in the trenches on this, Pauls. Bobby is faced with a Congress that and a Senate where the House and the Senate where on both sides of the aisle there are people who are heavily sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry, the vaccine manufacturers, for their campaign funds. And there is therefore huge pressure from both sides on him. I hear some absolute nonsense spoken by some of the politicians who should know better about the safety, protesting the safety of these things without any knowledge base whatsoever about the facts. Now, the good thing is that Bobby always deals with the facts and he knows them far better than most everybody on this planet. So he's standing up to the attacks very, very well. And I think he's doing a wonderful job. Here's what I really believe, and that is he will need a second term to continue what he's doing and to make the kind of progress that he really needs to make, particularly when the studies that are done that he's already initiated come to fruition. We have the results and therefore are able to make reasonable and logical decisions on policy based upon science, which is his objective. If he doesn't get a second term as head of HHS, then we've got problems. Why? Because humans are a very reactionary species. And what we will see if the Democrats get in and Bobby is removed from that position, then the Dems, who are very much friends of the pharmaceutical industry, we will see a swing. The pendulum will swing back the other way, and we will be in an even worse position than we were when Bobby came to his position at HHS. So whatever else you believe in politically, this is my issue, and Bobby must be given a second term to complete this work.
And Andy, what are you working on now? You personally, what are you doing?
New film. Now thank you very much for raising that, Pols. We have a new film that we're going into post-production on, hopefully soon. One of my concerns is this, with the issue of vaccination, I think we're beyond the tipping point now. Things are going to change. My concern, and you raised this in your testimony to Ron Johnson's committee, and that is what happens to my child when I die? What happens to my child when I become infirm, when I'm no longer able to care for him? What about the children who are left on the battlefield of man's war on infectious disease, those children who are the canaries in the coal mine? The damage is done for many, many of those millions of children, and they should not be forgotten. There is no system in place in this country or in the world at the moment to care for those children. So before I die, the film that I really want to do, to make, is a testament to that issue, to those children, because the greatest fear for any parent of a child with autism, the most enduring fear, the thing that keeps them awake at night, is what happens to my child when I become infirm or die and there is no one to look after them. No one cares about them. No one understands them. No one loves them like I do. And they will die on the street because the system does not exist at the moment to protect them. So if there is anyone out there who would like to get involved, to invest in this film as an investor, not a donor, to come on board and help us with this film, I would be enormously grateful. It needs to be made. Film has been a very, very powerful way to change the dialogue, as you well know, Pols.
And how can people contact you then if they want to get involved?
Info@wakefieldmediagroup.com. Info@wakefieldmediagroup.com. Please make contact.
Andy, thank you for coming on this morning. Thank you for all the work you have done and are still doing. And we hope to see you back on here soon.
Thanks very much, Pols. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everyone, let's bring Cece on. She said she'd come back, and she's back. She's going to answer all of your questions. Good morning, Cece. Oh, I think you're muted.
There we go. How's that?
That's much better. How are you?
I'm terrific. Thank you for having me back.
Of course. Well, let's get on with the first question. I'm going to put my glasses on to read these. Is it all your viewers' questions, everyone? What kind of threat does or do wireless headphones pose? Well, we did sort of answer that last week, but maybe you want to go back through that.
Yeah, we talked about the earbuds specifically, but others are also plugging in wired headphones to a radiating device. The radiation travels up the wire and right into the brain. And one of the properties of wireless radiation is that it amplifies around metal. So you don't want to be putting anything metal up to your head when you are using a radiating device.
Cece, can you put headphones on and then with the wired thing, it plugs into your laptop or whatever? Is that good or is that not good?
Yeah, so there are hollow tube headsets available, and some people call them air tube headsets, but basically it's like a doctor's stethoscope, right? It's just rubber up to the ears. There's no metal, and then the acoustics go fine. These little beads break the radiation that are coming from this wire, but it's a big long cord, so you can set your radiating device far away from you. So the idea is to get to what the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention call the ALARA principle. You want to get to as low as reasonably achievable with any kind of man-made radiation, or the sun for that matter, right? You would never go outside 24/7 in the sun and just let yourself bake. Well, we need to take that kind of mindset for these invisible man-made radio frequency radiation exposures.
And someone asking where they can get those. I mean, I don't think you sell them for a second, but where?
No. I don't sell any products. I don't get a kickback on any products, but there are a few different companies that have worked really hard in this space, and we will have those in the show notes when this gets posted. Thank you, Lou. He's just put up the Shield Your Body website with our friend R. Blank, who's just come out with another book called Empowered to teach people how to use technology safely. And then there's also Less EMF. I think that was the company I bought my daughter's headphones from. One Christmas, I put them in their stockings. They're like, Mom, what is this? So, as parents, we try to encourage our kids to use tech safety. And then there's also a company called Tech Wellness. And you can just go look at, any of these companies and see which one you think you'll like better. And I always say, make sure you can return anything you buy in case it turns out it's not something that you really are interested in.
Quite right. Okay, Donna Groom says, what about hearing aids that don't use batteries and are Bluetooth and take phone calls? We had quite a few questions on hearing aids.
That's a really great topic. My husband came home one day and he goes, hey, check this out. I can turn up Mom's hearing aids with my cell phone. And I went, what? And that's when they started putting Bluetooth antennas inside the hearing aids that we're putting inside our heads right up next to our brains. Folks, there is no safe level of man-made radiation in the scientific literature. So again, let's get to as low as we can. So what we did with my mother-in-law is we went back to her audiologist and we shared the science and said, this is dangerous. And my mother-in-law did not like those hearing aids. She kept whipping them out. But what we found out when we got back to the manufacturer, and this was news to her doctor, her audiologist did not know that radio frequency is harmful. So when we went and looked up her particular model and manufacturer, we found out on hers we could open and close the door to the battery 3 times and it worked as a toggle to turn the hearing aids off and on. So you need to, do a little bit of research, but I also reached out to Kathy Cook, who is a building biologist, and she recommends a company called Phonak, Phonak, and that will also be listed in our show notes today. Thank you for bringing that up. But this is a non-wireless hearing aid, and I think they have a few different models that you could look into there.
Well, Janice, she has a question as well. She says, I wear hearing aids, but don't use Bluetooth to listen to podcasts. Are my hearing aids still transmitting EMFs?
My guess is that the Bluetooth is probably on all the time unless you manually somehow disable it. And I did a wellness fair yesterday here in Massachusetts, and a gentleman came up who was wearing the hearing aids. And he said his doctor tells him to wear them all the time from the minute his feet hit the floor to, when he goes to bed at night. And he said, it didn't kind of make sense to me. So if our goal is to get to as low as reasonably achievable, if there's nobody around you, don't put them in, right? Until you can make your way to a safer solution.
All right, Jane here is asking about the wireless watches. I think she means those watches that everyone's those Apple watches that just do your heart rate and everything. Are they dangerous? I mean, I have family members that wear those.
Yeah. So interesting story. My yoga teacher had me come over to her house and I did a walkthrough with the radio frequency radiation meter that we showed last week. It's the Safe and Sound Pro 2 from Safe Living Technologies. Again, that'll be in the show notes. I'm not getting a kickback, but they're third-party certified, and this is the one that was recommended at the EMF Medical Conference. So I went over to my yoga teacher's house and we did a walkthrough and identified what her sources of radiation are and talked about mitigation. And she said, well, what about this wearable? And it's the same thing. The goal is to get to as low as we can. And on most wireless devices, you can go into your settings and turn off the antennas, right? You can turn off the Bluetooth, you can turn off the Wi-Fi. On our phones, we can turn off the cellular, the data, and then use whatever's on the device. I think the tracking mechanisms, the watch, the alarms, all that still works. It doesn't need you to be sending signals back and forth. The only thing you need the signal for is if you want to sync up your data, maybe to your phone or your tablet or your laptop. But take the thing off of you and sync it up then so that you're not radiating yourself directly. So my yoga teacher actually had a Fitbit on that day and we measured it. And again, it was off the charts. And she said, because my heart starts going jiggity. And I went and looked on the Fitbit community website, and there was an elite athlete, strapping athlete, top of his game, whose heart was going jiggity on him. And his Fitbit broke. And so, he didn't wear one for a couple of weeks and his heart re-regulated. And he figured it out when he got his second Fitbit and put it on, and then his body started going wonky again. So we are biologically all very different. And some people will say, oh, I use it and I feel fine. But we need to understand that this radiation toxicity is cumulative, like any toxin. So the longer we expose ourselves without having the opportunity to clean up our cells, the higher the risk that we're going to hit that tipping point and develop electromagnetic radiation syndrome. So let's see what we can do.
Lou just put up an image of a guy running. He had earpods in and he was checking his what Apple Watch or whatever it is. What is that doing inside his body? And I bet loads of people are probably doing that.
Yeah, and we've all been sold these sexy products. They're really fun, right? We get to do amazing things with us, but they're not sharing the risk. So I do a free public education webinar every month, 2 hours, and I'll really walk you through the science. But if you want the cliff notes right now, because we have a minute or two here, here are some things that people may notice right away. Headaches, nosebleeds, anxiety, depression, insomnia. This is a neurotoxin that is pulsating our biological system many, many, many times per second more than the Earth's natural electromagnetic field. And so what happens? We know that the brain sees this invisible light energy form as the lights are on. So in the wee hours of darkness with our circadian rhythm, in the middle of the night, it's supposed to be dark. That's our brain signal to release melatonin to go in and regulate our sleep and to go in and help do the cell repair and regeneration and cleanup from the day's debris. So that melatonin suppression is one big thing. Another thing is the blood-brain barrier is a membrane that surrounds our brain, and that membrane helps to keep toxins from getting into sensitive areas like the brain. And what the science has shown is that when we constantly pulse ourselves with this man-made microwave radio frequency, it opens up or it permeates the blood-brain barrier. So now when the blood is escorting toxins out of the body, it can take a left turn and go right into the brain, which helps us to understand why we have so much more neurotoxicity today than we have had in previous generations. So, and then there's something called rouleau formation. So my tell, if I'm holding a radiating device like a phone, my pinky finger starts to tingle. And as Dr. Magda Havas and Dr. Rob Brown will tell us through their studies, we're doing something that's creating rouleau formation. In my little brain, that sounds like the candy Rolos, right? You know how it's stacked up chocolate caramels? Well, our red blood cells are supposed to be free-floating one by one and bringing oxygen to all of our systems and organs. When we expose ourselves to this constant bombardment of microwave radio frequencies, it is ruining that little system on the red blood cell that keeps them separated. And now they start magnetizing and glomming together. And now you've got this chain of red blood cells that look like a stack of coins, and they can't get to where they need to go to bring the oxygen to all of our systems and organs. So that rouleau formation is another very serious concern. So we need to start thinking along these lines. If we make the choice to use a wireless radiating device, these are the risks that we assume, right?
Right, Cece. Now, what about Jane is asking about the Aura ring? Is there such a thing? Do you know what that is?
Yes, so it's a smart ring.
Okay.
And I just did a little bit of research, and over at Tech Wellness, they have done a blog article on this. And it looks like these Aura rings do have a setting where you can turn off the Bluetooth antenna. So again, we don't want to be putting radiating devices on our body. So there's an article that we can share, and I'll send Lou the notes on that. But we can share that. But yeah, so back in 2011, when the World Health Organization first started investigating, can electromagnetic radiation be harmful? They determined back then it was a group 2B possible human carcinogen. We now have studies where the scientists are saying, we now know, we've done the animal studies, we now know this should be reclassified as class 1, group 1, known human carcinogen. And at that time, the World Health Organization indicated it doesn't matter where these man-made frequencies are coming from, it's all the same. It's all capable of doing the same damage, whether it's a cell tower, a router, a baby monitor, a ring, a watch, a cell phone, a tablet, a wireless home security system, and all of the Internet of Things that the market is bringing forth. They're forecasting, Polly, that we're going to have 200 wirelessly connected devices in our homes with 5G and the Internet of Things. If we don't learn and learn to make choices to have amazing technology, because we can stay connected and protected. I'm using a hardwired system in my home right now, and it's not rocket science to fix. We just need to go back to our router and plug in Ethernet cables and get the little dongles that allow us to connect our devices. So, and I go into a little more detail on that on my 2-hour webinar every month. So yeah, every wireless device that we own, we should have a choice as to whether or not it will radiate us. So go into your settings and turn off the Bluetooth, turn off the Wi-Fi, turn off the locator, the hotspot, the 5G, the cellular, the data, and get to as low as reasonably achievable.
Someone asking about mammograms. Are they giving women cancer, just like X-rays, toddlers' teeth annually that are going to fall out anyways?
Oh, I think what she's saying is why would you x-ray a toddler's mouth?
Right.
Because you're going to lose those baby teeth anyway. But with the mammograms, again, each one of us is constructed very individually. So you need to know your family history. You need to understand what your personal risk is and talk to your healthcare practitioner to decide for yourself if that is risk you want to take. That's a different kind of technology that's ionizing, and we know scientifically that can break the atom. What we're talking about with wireless technology is non-ionizing. It doesn't outright break the atom, but it does a whole lot of other biological harm.
Okay, well, so now Kim Martin is asking, do cell phones in our cars make it worse? Should we turn off Wi-Fi on our cell phones?
Yes, because again, radio frequency radiation amplifies with metal. And so you are now driving around in a metal box. Your head is the highest beacon in the car. And so all that radiation is bouncing around in there. And a lot of cars today are putting these wireless sensors all over. So we really encourage people to get a radio frequency meter to understand exactly what your exposures are with any of this technology. And then one by one, learn how to take baby steps to disable it. So I have an old iPhone 7 that really is a glorified clock and camera. At home, I use a landline. You can forward your cell phone calls to a landline. I'm not on the go, so why do I need mobile technology at home, right? So yeah, in a car, keep it off as much as you can because you're hopping from cell tower to cell tower as you travel, and that pulls a really strong signal to try and make the connection wherever you go down the road. So I would just turn it all off if you can.
Well, Cece, we do have more questions for you. So here's what I want to say to our viewers, keep those questions coming right into us at CHD TV, and we will forward them to Cece. And when we've got enough, we'll bring her back on chd.tv/contact. And Cece will come back on. I don't know if you will. I'm just hoping you will.
I will come back as many times as people want. And please come to my free webinar. We do a live Q&A at the end there too.
So again, tell people how they can follow you, how they can get in contact with you.
Okay. Massachusetts for Safe Technology. It's MA, the number 4, safetech.org. And if you just want a crash course, go right out to saferscreentime.org. Dr. Mikko Ahonen is one of the world's leading scientists in Finland, and he and I have created a course that can be completed probably less than an hour. We can train your whole schools, we can train your workforce, your family. So if you want a crash course, go there. If you want to come and ask questions, come with Polly and I, or come to my free webinar.
Fantastic. Cece, thank you for everything that you do and continue to do for us, educating us. It's amazing. Thank you.
And right back at you. Thank you for the opportunity to get word out, because there's no cavalry coming. We have to learn and protect our loved ones ourselves.
Well, we hope to see you very soon. I'm sure our viewers have a ton more questions. But
Okay.
thank you so much, Cece.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, now we're going to go live to Kimberly. Good morning, Kimberly.
Good morning.
And do we have Colt here as well?
Yep, this Colt.
Morning, Colt.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for doing this morning. It's so important that we talk about what happened to you, because it warns other parents and helps other people. There are other people in the same situation as you. So we truly appreciate you being here this morning. And can you tell everyone how old you are, Colt?
12.
And you're about to be 13 now, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Talk us through, and Kim is your mom. So talk us through what happened.
So I was originally in school, and then that's when I built up a friend group, and I was with all my friends, and then I started to play soccer, and then I had a whole different friend group in that area of time. And I built up this reputation of just having a fun time at school and not just, and then all of a sudden I'm out. And then that's when I start getting filled in on the vaccine, and then it was just down from there.
So basically, you have had vaccines. You're not an unvaccinated child, correct?
Oh, actually, he's had 30 injections with a total of 122 doses. And they just, now that the 7th grade vaccine came up, which none of my other kids had 7th grade vaccines, they just won't let him in school because of it. And then they let us do the virtual school. We missed soccer season. Of course, that took a toll all by itself. And then the day school started, we were logged in. We had all of our logins. We had everything set up, and then we couldn't get logged in. We were there the night before, and then the morning of, and I kept calling like, hey, something's wrong with our computer. They said, oh, you have been withdrawn. Nobody told us we were withdrawn. And no, they didn't. They just said that we had to come in once a year for testing, and he wasn't allowed in the building, so he couldn't do their virtual school either. So we had to find an alternative, which we did a virtual prep academy, which didn't work out too well either. So we're just trying to homeschool right now. And I wrote a letter. We had a federal exemption. And when we came here to West Virginia, they turned us down. They denied it. They said whichever state or federal had the stricter rules is the one you had to follow. So we had to go with the state law, and they denied us. So we got a religious exemption because it was under the religious freedom law. And then the Board of Education decided that it was not in the religious freedom law, that it itself was a law, and it didn't pass. So we couldn't use them. And I had already missed my window for fighting against the medical. So I got in touch with the superintendent, and I begged. I laid out our case. Please let Cole, look at the medical exemption one more time, because there was no one in that position when it got denied, and there is now. Just take a look at it. She put me in touch with the assistant superintendent. And when he emailed me, or I called and I pleaded my case, and he seemed really interested. And he said, send me everything you got, all your medical evidence, everything, and I'll take a look at it. I'll take it back to the board and I'll see what I can do. I got really hopeful for a minute. And then by the end of the next week, he shot me an email that said, we've been directed by the state not to accept religious exemptions. I said, wait a minute. I didn't talk to you about a religious exemption. I talked to you. He didn't open any. I sent him everything I had. It took 4 emails to send him everything I had, and he didn't open a single one of them. Not one. So I said, well, this is the kind of people I'm encountering in West Virginia, and this is what's disgusting me. The nurses, they've been nasty to us. They've tried to humiliate us, intimidate us, you name it. And now the assistant superintendent didn't even open my emails. He said, oh, my fault. I'm sorry. Here's how you get a medical exemption. And I had already filled all that paperwork out, and he had it in his email. He again didn't even open them. So that's what we're dealing with here.
And Kim, tell everyone what you were telling me before we went live about the things the nurses have been saying to you.
Well, the county nurse, we're in Boone County, she said, well, I don't know what the big deal is. He's had them before. He's still alive. I guess I just love my kids more than you do. I want mine protected. She had no idea what we'd been through. None. She had no idea the 2-year struggle it took to get Colt back to where he was before those vaccines. So she sent me to the state nurse, and she looked at it, and I had to talk to her, and she said, well, I guess you should just walk around here in West Virginia to some of these cemeteries and look at some of these children's tombstones and imagine how their parents wish they would have the choice that you have to get that vaccine. That's what I'm dealing with.
I'm so sorry, Kim. Right, I think we just need to go back a bit so people understand the context of this. So Colt was completely vaccinated, but then he had a reaction, right?
Yes. What he had when he was as a baby, he would break out in eczema from head to toe for at least a week after every vaccine. But we kept going because, I'm not the only decision maker. There's another half involved. We kept going. But then when we got to the kindergarten vaccines, that's when he was neurologically damaged for quite some time. That was just the 2-week where he turned red, literally halfway down his face. I'd never seen anything like it, and nobody else had seen anything like it. They had no explanation. But the kindergarten vaccines, they diagnosed him with pandas, and said he had obsessive compulsive disorder and severe OCD, and that PANS had a quick onset. So there was correlation, which I hate that phrase now. Correlation does not equal causation. So even though it happened the same day as the vaccines and went on constantly, there was no vaccine injury as far as they were concerned. But the thing, even we testified in front of the Senate and the House committees last year for trying to get this law passed to accept the exemptions. Even one of the senators asked me, she said, well, she Googled PANS while we were sitting there and said, well, it has a quick onset. So they're right. You can't connect the two. Correlation just doesn't make causation. But PANDAS does not go away. Not with therapy, not the things we did with Colt and Colt's did. So when you look back, I added 2 years of therapy and working, and he's over it all. He's 100% back to where he was and healthy. And I'm not willing to take that risk. And the state doctor said, well, maybe he's outgrown whatever allergy he had. I've known kids that outgrow allergies. Just get a West Virginia doctor to give him the vaccine and note what the reaction, and then he can go back to school. No way, over my dead body.
Right. And Kim, what vaccines did they want him to have?
It's the Tdap, which isn't even, tetanus is not even like he can give it away. It's not like he can get it and spread it around the school. And the meningococcal.
Right.
They're requiring it now in the 7th grade and the 12th grade or 11th grade before you can go to the 12th grade.
And so then did someone come into school and say, you've got to leave, or did they just say you can't come back?
They just said we can't come back.
All
I
right.
started fighting it when he was in 6th grade, and they were saying he can't come. He can't play soccer in the summer. He can't participate in anything. And I fought it all the way up till, like I said, the day school started. We thought we were at least in the virtual academy, and we didn't even get that.
So you got thrown out of the virtual academy. So let's think about this for a second. You're at home doing virtual school, nowhere, not touching anybody else, and you still need to be vaccinated to be in virtual school.
Because it's state run.
That doesn't make any sense.
Mm-mm.
All right, Colt, let's chat with you for a second, because you're 12 years old and this has been going on for some time. You can see why your mum's doing this. She doesn't want you to get hurt anymore. But how is it, what's going on in your head? Because you've got friends, it's hard, right?
Yeah. I talk to my friends I have their phone numbers, and they're all just like, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? And the fact that I have to say that I don't know when I'm coming back, because it's just, we're fighting if I could come back because of the vaccines.
Do your friends understand the vaccine fight that you're in?
Yeah.
And so what would be the best outcome for you, Colt? What is it you want?
All I really want, just for me, is to go back to school and just not get the vaccines, and soccer.
Are you still playing soccer now?
Mm-mm.
So you're not doing anything?
Nope.
And how long has this been going on for?
Since June.
June of 2025. Well, Colt, we're really sorry. And if there's anything that you need or our viewers can do to help you, I mean, everyone will be praying for you for sure. Do contact us and let us know, because this is not a good situation for any child. In fact, you're kind of like a poster child for all the others. There are other children in the same situation as you. So just do let us know. Kim, what do you want us to do, the viewers, the people? What can we do to help you?
I just like for people to understand that there's another side of this. That we had pediatricians that sued our school board at the thought of unvaccinated kids coming into the school because their kids were autoimmune. But my kid is perfectly healthy. He's perfectly healthy, and he's not allowed in the school because they don't. I don't see how he's a threat. He doesn't carry the disease. He's not going in there and giving it to their vaccinated children that are supposed to be protected from it. They have no idea what they're doing to the kids that they're not allowing in to the public. He would get the vaccines now at this point. He would take whatever risk he had to take just to be back in school. So the fact that I'm standing in the way makes me the middleman. And I'll do that if that's what I have to do for as long as I have to do it. But people need to understand he's not a threat to their children. He poses no threat. I don't understand why they're so. I've got the whole herd immunity. I've heard it. I've sat quietly and listened to people explain it to me so that they know that I understand it, even though I already understand it. And it is not going to damage their herd immunity percentages. And West Virginia has the most sick kids in America and the highest vaccination rate, but yet I guess causation and correlation don't meet there either.
And someone's saying move to Florida. How is it? Is it impossible for you to move?
Well, I thought about moving and taking him to another state, but we came here for a reason. This is my home state. I moved away for 30 years. I came back. I couldn't wait to come back. I got back here and this happened. I did not anticipate this happening, and it's ruined everything.
I'm sure. And also, Colt doesn't really help you when all your friends are there. Right?
No.
Yeah, exactly. I get it. Well, look, do contact us and keep us updated. How can people, is there a social media or anywhere people can follow you and what you're doing?
I have a lot of people that follow me. As a matter of fact, I'm working with the West Virginians for Medical Freedom, and we have a big day coming up on the 21st at the Capitol, where everybody will be there. Aaron Siri will be there on the stairs. I think he comes on at like 10 o'clock, and he's going to talk to everybody outside the Capitol, and hopefully they'll hear our bill. And I know there's a lot of people lobbying against it already. If we could just get the people that are for religious freedom and medical freedom to reach out to their senators and let them know, because the people that don't want it surely are speaking up. And if we don't speak up, you can't sit back and watch. If it might be you next time, and there might be a mandated vaccine that they require you to get, and then you're going to have a problem with it. So if you don't want it, you've got to speak up.
Right. And Colt, I think they should have you on those steps speaking out about what's happening to you right now. It's very powerful. You're just 12 years old and you're not allowed to go to school because of a vaccine and because of vaccines that have hurt you in the past. None of this makes sense.
And nobody had 7th grade vaccines before, and they'll probably won't have them for long if RFK has anything to do about it.
Yeah. Well, Colt, I think you're an amazing human being and so brave to come on and talk about this with us today. Keep speaking out, Colt. We need you. We need your voice. And we're so proud of you standing firm on this.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being on this morning. All right, everybody. Well, wow, what a show today. We will be back tomorrow. Michael Ken will be back with you tomorrow. But for now, pray big, stand firm, never settle, and I'll see you on Wednesday. How ironic that we're right outside a hospital. Okay, we're live. Right, what's your name?
My name is Melanie Bolin. I'm a pharmacist.
You're a pharmacist. Let's start with that. Okay, so you're a pharmacist.
Yes.
Did you give people vaccinations?
I had to. I didn't want to. I tried.
You mean the COVID shot was open?
I tried to tell people not to. I tried. They wouldn't listen to me. Nope, they wouldn't listen. I got in trouble with the Board of Pharmacy. They called me twice because my Facebook posts were anti-vaccine.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you had to give the COVID shots, and you did, but you tried to warn them. This is a story about your daughter.
Yeah.
Who died after Pfizer.
Yeah, it was after her 4th
at
dose.
29 years old.
Yes.
Talk us through what happened.
Okay. Well, she was a hospice nurse. She was so compassionate and caring. Just a beautiful person. We were estranged, and so we just had a difficult relationship. So I hadn't talked to her since before COVID, but when she was 11 years old, she was diagnosed with mitral valve prolapse, which is very mild, floppy heart valve. We saw a pediatric cardiologist, and they just wanted her to have a recheck like every 4 years or so. So she had, she was healthy other than that. And even then, it was just something they wanted to monitor.
But you as a pharmacist, did you vaccinate yourself with COVID shots?
I did not.
You did not. So you didn't take it, and you tried to warn people, but you had to give the shots, is what you're saying. Okay. But did you know the dangers for people with, anybody, but particularly people with heart issues?
Yes.
Did you have any way of warning your daughter?
No.
Do you know how many, you know it was Pfizer, but do you know how many she took?
She had 4 doses.
4 doses. Talk us through what happened after that.
So after she got her first dose in December 2020, and then her second dose in January. And then she went a year before she got another one. It was in February. And then the following November, her fiance took her to the ER. She was having some heart issues, and they had her wear a heart monitor for a couple weeks. So she had an appointment with a cardiologist in March a year ago. She had an echocardiogram The week prior to that, she had had her 4th shot. Her echocardiogram and everything, it was okay. There was nothing indicative that she wasn't going to make it another month or so. She on April 29th last year, she had been doing some yard work, and she called her fiance around 6 and left him a voicemail that she was looking forward to him getting home from work that evening. He got home about 2.5 hours later. She was still sitting at the table drinking a cup of tea, and she was gone. He called 911. He tried to do CPR. They couldn't save her. They couldn't revive her.
What was on her death certificate? What did they put down as the cause of death?
Sudden cardiac arrest due to her mitral valve prolapse.
So they blamed it on the original thing she had as a child, not the vaccination.
Right. And I actually interviewed with Dr. McCullough in February, and gave him the numbers and stuff that he was looking for. He said it was from the vaccine.
Of course it's from the vaccine. You don't need to be Einstein to work that out.
Right.
It's just a terrible, terrible shock for you. Even though you hadn't seen your daughter for how many... Show the people the picture of you and your daughter. The last picture.
Oh,
These are pictures of behind here of when she was younger.
Yeah, this is...
And there's a beautiful picture here of mother and daughter together. She's just trying to find it.
Yeah. This is our last photo together. This was at the beach. It was...
Beautiful.
She is beautiful.
You both are.
She loved photography. She loved to travel. Her and her fiance had just been to Europe.
So she was a hospice nurse, so probably pressure from work, do you think?
Yeah, but I also do believe that she still believed that vaccines were safe and effective. She had to go into patients' homes to take care of patients. She wanted to protect their families, and she believed that they were still safe and effective.
Are you still a pharmacist?
I am, but I quit.
You have quit?
I tried to work a half of a shift, and I couldn't do it.
How long ago did you quit?
I was on a leave of absence, and I was supposed to go back right after the 4th of July, and I quit. I couldn't do it.
People still coming in for the COVID shots even now?
I think so. I tried to stay in contact with everybody that I was working with.
These pharmacists, they must know, your colleagues that you're working, they must know what you know.
There's a couple that I have worked with that do, but there's some that are clueless. I don't understand. It's like, I had started keeping a list of patients that I believed were injured by the vaccine, and my list just kept getting longer and longer and longer. Every time somebody was diagnosed with something new, diagnosed with a cancer, died, every single one of them was vaccinated.
So we didn't know what was in these shots?
No.
Because it was blank. The inserts were intentionally blank.
Right.
Do we know now what's in them even?
I don't know if anybody knows.
But do the inserts inside the Pfizer, for example, have a
Blank.
list?
It was
now?
blank.
Still blank.
To my knowledge, the last time that I mean, it's been almost a year since I've been in the pharmacy, so it's kind of hard to say what it is now. But at the time, it was still blank.
Has this made you look at all vaccinations?
I will never, ever get another vaccine again. Ever. I'd die first. In fact, Every morning when I wake up, I'm disappointed that I'm still breathing, because I just want to die and be with my daughter. I'm sorry. Pfizer did this. Pfizer stole her from me, even though we were estranged. And it's a long story. But I always had hoped that, you know, I mean, she was engaged. You know, they were going to have a family. They talked about having kids, and I hoped that when she finally had kids of her own, that she would understand more what happens when she was younger and reach out to me. I had tried reaching out to her periodically, and just constant rejection.
So that last photograph of you two together, how many years ago was that? Because she looks quite old in that one.
Gosh, I don't even know.
No, it doesn't matter. But you did. It wasn't as if it was forever. Look at you. We brought her up. Look at all these pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know our viewers will be sending you so much love. And is there anything else you want to add to this story?
I know there's so many families that have been torn apart by all this COVID nonsense. People need to get past their disagreements, no matter what it is. If it's COVID, if it's other things, families need to come together again.
Right.
They need to forgive. You don't want someone to die and have your last conversation be something terrible. It will haunt you for the rest of your life. We need to forgive.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.